What's going on, nerds and bandits? It is Noel T from the NCU channel, back at it again with another video. And before we get into the meat and potatoes on why you clicked on this video, I want to state that I love Elden Ring and the Souls games. I got into the Soulsborne games when I first bought Dark Souls 2. In short, I hated that game and returned it to GameStop the day after I bought it. Years later, I was watching The Democracy on his Dark Souls 3 boss ranking videos, and it made me pick up the game and actually give the Souls game a chance. These games are super difficult for newcomers, but definitely teaches you patience and perseverance when it comes to challenges. Now, I'll play God of War Ragnarok with no weapons and just parries and these hands. You know why? Cause I got good. Jokes aside, I got Elden Ring about a month after release and have well over 100 hours in the game. I know that's light work for a lot of veteran players, but hey, I am in college and those midterm exams invading into my peaceful world get the best of me sometimes. But to mitigate that stress while doing assignments, I usually listen to lore videos from people like VatiVidya and Square Table Gaming, who have really gotten me deeper into enjoying the details of this game. With that being said, I was at my college talking with my friends about the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC and how we were so ready to play it. By the way, I have finally built my PC and look forward to streaming this summer, so keep your eyes out for that announcement. We talked about the new builds that we will be using and how somber the DLC looked as a whole. One of my friends then asked me the question that made me create this video. What is the best and worst places to live in Elden Ring? He also asked me that same question about Bloodborne, and considering that I'm halfway through that game and know that I need to do an even deeper dive on those areas, that'll have to be a video for another time. But if you want a ranking of those areas too, then please hit that like button and comment down below, and I'll make sure to get to that video as soon as possible. With that being said though, today's video is ranking the best and worst places to live in Elden Ring. And while I was writing the script for this video, a particular man in a white mask walked up to me and told me that those who watch the video and haven't subscribed to the page yet are indeed maidenless. He also handed me a bloody finger, which is a very weird gift to receive, especially when you're wearing white clothes. But if you would all like to prove him wrong, then please like this video, subscribe to the NCU channel, and turn on post notifications so that you can stay up to date whenever I upload. Doing this shows me how much you enjoy the longer and higher quality videos that get produced, helps me reach more viewers who are interested in this type of content, as well as let me know what you all like to watch and like to talk about. And of course, you can always leave suggestions in the comment section below, and if the idea is really interesting, I'll be sure to make a video about it and shout you out for the idea. To also add, by the time of writing this script, my PS5 was not only sent to the repair shop, but also stolen. So none of the gameplay used in this video is mine. If you want to hear that story, then drop it down in the comments also, and I'll get to working on that video as well. Anyways, I will have links to any channels that I have used gameplay for in this video, as well as I will make sure that their channel names are posted in the videos when their gameplay is used. I don't know any of these people personally, but if you really love Elden Ring and Souls content and want to know more about the lore and watch entertaining gameplay, please check out all of these channels and support them and watch their growth. But with all that being said, let's get into the reason on why you clicked on this video. Elden Ring? Ranking video? Real estate? Let's talk about it. So for starters, let's talk about the rules that I will be following when it comes to making this ranking list. Rule number 1, this list will not be viewing me as a tarnish, but more so as a normal NPC. That means the human type enemies like Crucible Knights will not attack me unless provoked or have lore reasons, and all of the beasts that are in the game will be in it for themselves because of natural instincts, of course. So while that means I could walk past the tree sentinel and he does nothing to me, the dragons, T-Rex like dogs, giant crows, tree spears, and other creatures see me as fair game. That goes the same with the boss encounters. Estelle would probably blow a laser beam through my chest considering whatever that space blob is, but Godfrey most likely will leave me alone. There are exceptions though, like Radon, considering that his brain is rotted, but I'm not joining any festivals, as well as I have no reason to encounter bosses unless they were world bosses like the dragons or deathbirds. Rule number 2, areas listed in the ranking video will have to have a map location. This means that places like Stormvale Castle will be considered within Limgrave and not as a separate space. same as the Volcano Manor and the inner city of Mount Gelmir. There are some exceptions, such as Altus Plateau and Leyndell being separate, but I'll explain that while I'm making my ranking. Rule number 3. Some areas will be combined depending on distinctiveness, size, or map direction. Areas like Dragon's Barrel, while having its own map, are a part of Caelid, and are more so just a tiny stretch of land above Caelid, so they will be ranked together. However, the snowfields and mountaintops are ranked separately because you need a certain medallion in order to access the other area. When I bring up map direction, I mean that places like North, East, and West Liurnia will all be viewed as just Liurnia instead of separate areas. I also use Stack News and Polygon.com to view each area, as well as the Elden Ring wiki for more in-depth analysis, so you can check those sites out if you're looking for all the areas as well. With all of those rules set in place, let's get into the ranking by starting with the worst places to live. Coming in at number 15, we have the Lake of Rot / Mohgwyn Palace. Before anyone starts typing in the comment section on why I combine these two places being connected to their rivers, especially the Lake of Rot and Nokron, as well as them being ranked together, for starters, they have their own map, and secondly, they are both really small run-up areas to a boss. Also, I wanted to have a smooth 15 number on this list, and I believe the problem with both areas are indeed the same on why these are the worst places to live. Both the Lake of Rot and Mohgwyn Palace have one big FU lake where nothing but disease and death waits. Scarlet Rot is a fast-acting poison, and having a giant lake full of that means that even if the price for a home is on the cheaper side, I wouldn't live long enough to even enjoy the views, though they are definitely lacking in that. Same with Mohgwyn Palace, but instead of rot, you have blood, and a whole lot of it. Mind you, there are bloodborne paladins that can unplug your game server, and you think that I want to reside in that area? Keep in mind that I haven't even mentioned the creatures that lurk in each area, but they carry this poison and blood as well. Giant crows, kindred of rot, blood dogs, tree periods, etc. Just a recipe for complete and utter suffering, and I'd be damned if my home caused the destruction of the lands between and possibly the rest of the world just because I wanted to host Thanksgiving. Following that up, at number 14, we have the Deep Root Depths. Unlike the Lake of Rot and Mohgwyn Palace, you don't have a stupid diseased lake covering all of the land, but the Depths decides to compensate that by having the body of Godwyn just sitting around growing and festering here. When you first enter the Depths, you are greeted with the sounds of flies swarming around. Those two factors alone should let you know that this place reeks. Lore-wise, Godwyn's soul was destroyed, but his body remained and kept spreading throughout the lands. And considering in the intro of the game when we see he had a normal sized body when taken out, and it has since grown into what we see in the Depths, I'm not too pleased with staying there. Add to that the giant ants and ghost spirits, though based on the rules I don't believe that the ghost spirits should bother you, the smell of this place, and even the chance to become a tree ornament considering what Deathblight can do to you, and you set yourself up for always being handed a deodorant stick and a constant trip to the doctor's office considering the bugs that will be infesting your home. But if you still decide that you want to live here, then it's obvious that your mind is set on being held by a particular lady who awaits at the top of the Depths. Be mindful though that she is still lying with Godwyn, a dead demigod, and falling asleep next to her will bring you to his best friend. So if you enjoy taking down Dragon because you want death booty and feet, then be my guest. Moving on from the almost uninhabitable places, we have Caelid / Dragon's Barrow blooming into number 13. Rule 3 definitely comes into play with this one because they both have their own map location. However, whenever you search up Caelid, it also includes Dragon's Barrow. Plus, it is such a small stretch of land that you don't really notice much after you collect all of the map locations. So, I decided just to combine them. With that being said, I will refer to them both as Caelid for the remainder of the video. Nevertheless, Caelid is the first place on this list where we see a decent amount of people walking around. Granted, the land looks this way because a certain brother and sister couldn't settle their differences, and the sister decided that she really doesn't know defeat and ruined the life for both of them. We never get a chance to see how Caelid looked before the battle between Malenia and Radahn, but when we do make our way over here, it is festive with rot and constant battles between the beasts and the inhabitants of the lands. Now there is a giant rot lake sitting in the middle of Caelid, but also within it is a town of Celia. Sorcerers live here, and though the town is definitely destroyed, still seems livable. Just prepare yourselves to have a very high medical bill or put into practice to learn magic in order to not get sick. Outside of this, you have lots of creatures roaming around, including those T-Rex dogs, giant crows, death birds, and more importantly, dragons. The rest of the people in Caelid are usually battling with these creatures or trying to cure themselves of the rot. Plenty of jobs for beast hunting if you're into that, as well as you find the death root, you can give it to the beast clergymen at the top of Caelid. Just know that you will be hunted and have to be on guard constantly because this place is no joke. If you choose to live here, it's probably best to live on the outskirts rather than within the lands. And whatever you do, do not head to the castle. You'll probably end up in the festival and get a chance to meet Radon. But remember that his brain is rotted, so he will attack you. So, good luck. Blowing in at number 12, we have Farum Azula. If you have that special person in your life that means the world to you, and you want to take them to a place that will take their breath away, please make sure to visit Farum Azula, because that tornado will surely leave them speechless and possibly flying off of the structure. As great as a spectacle this area is, unless you stay indoors, that tornado will show you destined death before you even meet Malekith. If the tornado doesn't get you, then I'm sure the dragons and the beastmen will. There aren't too many enemies that you may find, though very few human types. When you first enter this area, you're greeted by a Landsax type dragon and a room full of beastmen. There are many rooms and nice views if you like clouds, but your best bet is to set up shop near the Godskin Duo area, at least if you want to see some more humans. Don't sleep just anywhere though, because if you find yourself lying in a broken piece of the palace to take in the winds, then you might accidentally reverse time and be sitting face to face with the Dragon Lord himself. The best place you can possibly settle down here is the arena where you find Malekith, but that may not be possible considering he's guarding the Rune of Death there, so be mindful. The area is great overall, though dangerous for the sake of spectacle. Maybe if it was just floating around without the natural disaster sitting in the middle of it, then it would be higher on my list. But for the sake that if I want to go visit the pool, I not only have to make shin-breaking jumps, but deal with worm faces too, I think that I'll have to pass. Hitting the number 11 spot, we have Mount Gelmir. We go from one disaster to another. So, I don't know whether living inside or outside of the mountain is worse. On one hand, there are more humans outside of the mountain. Yet, if you look around, you'll see a lot of bodies just hanging around, which sends a distinct message that if you F around, you're gonna find out. You have giant hands that are around the exterior of the mountain, ulcerated tree spears, and people inflicted with madness. There is probably a distinct smell of people here, and human legs are not on my dietary list of things that I want to try. On the other hand, the inside of the mountain is just a cesspool of heathen snakes. You will encounter snake creatures, magma worms, these weird guys that have rocks on their heads, and virgins, though I believe you already know a few of them in the real world. There is lava everywhere, and one wrong step will have the locals here pull up to your location because obviously you're inviting them to a barbecue with you on the menu. There is a church here where the locals worship this giant serpent, so be prepared for someone to knock on your door asking if you accept Rykard as your Lord and Savior. The only middle ground area here would be to live within the Volcano Manor, but unfortunately you can't just waltz in. In game, the quickest way to get into the Volcano Manor is to get an invitation after completing a side quest. In order to stay, you have to become an assassin and invade other worlds. This will grant you favor within the manor and make your stay a bit more pleasant. If you do very well with this, you will get a chance to meet the Lord of the Manor, though you probably have already heard of him since there are talks of hearing slithering and hissing within the walls. If you really like snakes and hate the winter chills, this is probably the place for you. Just remember that you will either devour the gods or be devoured yourself. But if you're on the opposite spectrum and hate snakes but love the cold, then you'll love my number 10 entry, which is the Consecrated Snowfields. So for starters, the reason why I separated this with the mountaintop of the giants is the fact that you need a completely different medallion to access the west part of the mountaintops. And to be honest, there isn't a whole lot to do out here. It's very foggy and a very small amount of actual people to interact with. You do have your wolves and archers that may decide to liven up the place, but outside of that, there isn't too much going on. If you really want to make this place fun, head down to the Yilu Annex Tunnel and meet Estelle, or touch the Evergel in Ordina to get a surprise hug from the invisible black knives lurking around. This is a place where if you value your privacy and still want to make snowmen throughout the entire year, then you should visit. Otherwise, it's not a place where I would want to personally live. Still better than what's below though. But the snowfields do give us access to the number 9 spot on the list, which is the Haligtree.
I am Malenia, Blade of Mikola. And I have never known defeat.
Oh, how those words have caused many of broken hearts as well as controllers. But just because one boss has given us trouble doesn't mean the actual area will be that terrible to live. Mikola himself created the Haligtree by nurturing the sapling with his own blood and made it so that anybody would be welcomed here. Though I commend him for the hospitality, it doesn't mean that this place is the most hospitable. Before you get a chance to see the vibrant colors of Leyndell, you'll start at the top of the Haligtree. Here, you will encounter an array of giant ants as well as bubble blowers that would rather see you plummet miles below to the ground rather than walk on any of the branches. But somehow, if you can get past that, then there are buildings that harbor misbegotten as well as a few sorcerers. You also have the spirit snails, which really blows because if for some reason you piss them off, they will summon enemies to attack you. Even with all of this, you can still have an enjoyable time with the views that you will get as well as the mostly clean air here. That isn't so much to say once we get further down the tree and enter Leyndell. Now if we take a look at the landscape, we can see how vibrant and beautiful the city is. There are a multitude of people here, which means you aren't getting attacked too much. This, however, is ruined by the revenants that live here, as well as the kindred and tree avatars. And let's not forget the giant lake of rot that sits below the area. With the Haligtree as a whole, there is much beauty here with a few irritations, though I still wouldn't want to be in an area where a multitude of creatures could poison me. We already have pollutants in the air currently, and having a rotted lake under the city as well as the tree doesn't cut it for me. I would rather have an extended life than a shorter one. But for those who love masochism, I know that this is the place for you so you can live out your fantasy by being dominated by a powerful woman. Freezing the list at the number 8 spot, we have the mountaintops of the giants. Now I can see the arguments of the snowfields being a much safer area, but the main reason why I listed this above it would be because of the visibility as well as the barrenness. With how much the blizzard blows in the snowfield, you can barely see the area in front of you, which can cause accidental falling and unplugging your game server. To add to this, it's so open and barren that you have no real interaction with people, which means it would be very boring as well as there aren't many resources for food that we see. Now if you like the seclusion, then you can switch the order where each place is, but to me the mountaintops have more layers to it whether you want to live at the lower end or the upper end. The main issues that I would put here would be the fire monks, deathbird, some giants and giant ravens, as well as the one dragon that does decide to create a blizzard. But outside of that, there is abundance of space and different areas to explore and live. Do avoid the higher altitude though, because you could start the end of the Erdtree if you decide to burn yourself, but at least you get a chance to meet a giant and give him a bit of company. He does seem really lonely up there. Traversal getting here will be a pain, as you have to travel across a giant chain, but if you are interested in just enough code and people to not make you go insane, then this would be a place for you. Plus, there's a rich amount of lore there with how many giants you see impaled within a tree. From one of the highest areas of the game to one of the lowest, we get to our 7th location, being the Siofra River / Nokstella. This is one of the most beautiful areas in Elden Ring, and I tip my hat to everyone who worked on this game, and not only to give us a rich and beautiful land, but also put that same effort and dedication into the underground area, especially since some of these areas are hidden behind Ranni's quest. The stars under the cave, the architecture, even the giant skeleton lady sitting on a throne in certain areas gives this place its appeal. The problem that I do have with this area that comes to no surprise is the ants, as well as the mimic tears. See, there's one thing to have ants spread around each area and, have a few of them, but this location actually holds the nest of all of the ants. The queen is sitting there just spawning more and more, and that is something I would not want to deal with, especially for their size. To add to that, the mimic tears are a sentient liquid metal that will probably turn on you before you get a chance to settle in. And don't let it decide to copy your looks, or you'll end up with one taking your life as well as your family. And for the love of God, I cannot imagine waking up to enjoy the views of Noxtella and a giant boulder decides that it has beef with me and wants to flatten me into a pancake. There is one more underground area that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I want you all to comment where you think it will land when we get there. And while you're typing away at the keyboard to place your vote, let's take ourselves from underground and talk about the number 6 spot, Liurnia of the Lakes. This place is wet, but outside of the water, there is still a large amount of land here to explore. If you stay within the lake, you will encounter a dragon, a half-sunken city, as well as some Albinaurics walking around. But a lot of these creatures seem to be minding their own business unless you bother them. To the north, you get to meet the woman of every maidenless character's dream, Ronnie the Witch, but we'll also have to deal with some of very handsy creatures. To the east, you get a fort full of people who have gone mad, which is kind of fun I guess, as well as some natives and one of the best towns in the game, Jarburg. There isn't too much of note to the west and south of the lake. There isn't too much to note to the west, and the south of the lake carries a poison swamp, but it wouldn't be a From Software game if there wasn't one. Nevertheless, this would probably be the perfect place to set up shop for a seafood restaurant, considering how much crab and lobster roam around here. And you already have a chef who knows how to catch and cook them perfectly. And considering how ferocious the lobsters act, I would trust Bogart to take them down before I do it myself.
Oh, you again, is it? Perfect bloody timing, actually. I got crab, cooked up fresh. Never met someone with a taste for crab I couldn't trust. You've got a real thing here, eh?
Let's also not forget that Rhea Lucaria is the best school in the game to learn magic. If you are somehow accepted by them, or find a way to sneak around the dragon to get the key, you could gain the knowledge of how to use magic and live within this area. Avoiding the Verges as well as the Red Wolf of Radagon, you may find some comfort here. Just make sure that you avoid mentioning Radagon or any other types of magic to any of the other locals, because his ex-wife is sitting at the top, and that will probably get you a beautiful comment Azura to the face. With that being said, you have an okay area to live, someone you can befriend and help you cook if not cook for you, and a school that can teach you so many spells that you'll be able to take on the hardships that the lands between have to offer, though there are 5 other places that I believe that are just a bit better. Before we crack into the top 5, if you haven't already, please drop a like on this video. I appreciate everyone who has made it this far into the video and hope that you're enjoying it. Comment Elden Lord if you have made it this far, and I'll be sure to like your comment. With that out of the way, let's get to the semi-peaceful place that doesn't have too much going on, being the Weeping Peninsula. At long last, we have finally landed near the beginning of this game. The Weeping Peninsula has a sprinkle of what you can expect from the rest of the game, being that this could be the first time you encounter a lot of enemies. When you first get here, you'll be greeted by a lot of misbegotten, which of course isn't a good sign. Getting past them will open up a nice amount of land, but living areas will be interesting to say the least. On one hand, if you want to get to the giant castle all the way at the bottom of the map, then you'll probably get sniped by the giant stone golem standing guard. Whether you want to enter there or not, the remaining landscape has a lot to offer. You have a few beaches on the western side of the map, a forest where some animals live, though you should look out for the frenzy rats as well as the rune bears. You do unfortunately have a poison ruin as well as death birds lurking, but it's not like we haven't seen them already. This area has a nice mix and balance of a lot of things that would be appealing for someone to live, but for me, it just doesn't give that all that I would want. It just feels a bit clustered with a lot of its areas, unless you decide to head westward, which has a lot more open space and arguably a bit safer. Nevertheless, if you have the runes for it and you're considering on buying a house in a lovely area, then let me introduce you to a place that shines like no other. The Altus Plateau. The lands outside of Leyndell are magnificent with the golden hue of the Erdtree casting down on it. The land is rich with people, animals, and areas to explore. The Altus Plateau gives me the vibe that you are well off enough to live in a nice area, but just not rich enough to live in a gated community. Needless to say, with all the colors and areas you can explore here, there are a few issues. The first one is that there are a rich amount of creatures that will attack you here. Not only does Landsacks decide to dive in to give you a hell of a greeting, but there is also a falling star beast as well as a death bird lurking around. Even if somehow you avoid all of that, there is one part of this location that you need to avoid. Now sit back and think of all the horror movies that you grew up watching or are still watching today. Think about the times when something happens in a forest, whether it be a psycho or a monster that resides there. This is the forest right outside of the walls. It is filled to the brim with worm faces, all of which, if they decide to breathe too close to you for too long, you will turn into a tree ornament. You'll be looking worse than the victims that Obito created after he saw Ring get taken out by his best friend. RIP Neji, but I promise you that you will suffer that same fate if you traverse the forest. Even if you somehow avoid that, please make sure that you avoid the women of the windmill town. They may seem friendly with how they're dancing around, but I promise you that they are looking at you as a snack. Overall, the Altus Plateau is a beautiful place with a lot to be desired, but there are 3 places that I would argue are better. Now we look at the podium and talk about who takes bronze, silver, and gold. Coming in at number 3 is arguably the most secure place that you can live, being Leyndell capital. When I first entered this area, I was shocked at how much detail went into it. It reminded me of when I played Dark Souls 1 and saw Anor Londo for the first time. But with this, I was actually able to explore the entire capital. There are mostly humans here, with a sprinkle of misbegotten as well as some gargoyles, but everything else is well maintained. You get a rich piece of history with a giant dead dragon lying within the capital as well as its weapon. You're essentially protected by Morgoth the Omen, as long as you stay in line and you get the most amazing view of the Erdtree in all of its glory. This is the gated community of Elden Ring, because a lot of people cannot afford to get in. I should know, I work part-time, and when I tried to enter this area in my playthrough, I was met with not 1, but 3 different tree sentinels. My only issue with this place is that for how beautiful and secure it is, there is a dark secret that lies beneath. Travel towards the well and you will see an underground area that holds so many omens as well as jails to keep them there. It's honestly quite sad and makes you wonder what the Golden Order is really doing. If you're able to get past the depression that lives beneath you and you have the runes for it, then I say go for it and settle down here. There's a lot of potential when it comes to making a living as well as just enjoying your life. That is until someone wants to become the new Elden Lord and buries the capital in a bunch of ash. Pulling into the number 2 spot is the ever so iconic area of Limgrave. This is by far one of the best starting areas in video games, hands down, as it not only teaches you how the world is yours to explore at your leisure, but has so many levels to get you to understand what to do and what to look for throughout your whole journey. Though I truly don't like walking outside and a white masked man tells me I get no women. Nevertheless, Limgrave also has an eastern side where you get a better expansion of the land and what it has to offer. You can get a beachside property right from the beginning, live closer to the forest and hunt the animals. You can even live near the castle. Just don't grab the attention of Godric. He likes to take people's limbs and use them for himself. Nevertheless, some of the hazards that you will come across are those weird octopus creatures, a dragon, rune bears littered in the forest, and a few giants spread around. With all of that though, they are easily avoidable as long as you decide to mind your business. The only time that I would encourage you to fight something would be to take out the demi-humans in the cave near the beach. That grants you access to an exclusive island where you can keep yourself away from all of the drama, outside of the people who want to partake in Dragon Communion. I love Limgrave and would have chosen this to be the place that I would want to live in this game, but there's just one more place that stole my heart. And that of course would be our number 1 entry, Siofra River / Nokron. Let's run down the list on why this place is amazing. The beautiful sky with the stars ever so close to you is breathtaking. The natives, as long as you get to know them, are very much hunter-gatherers and praise the nature that is there. It is secluded enough that you won't be bothered too much by wannabe Elden Lords, but still gives you access to the upper reaches of Limgrave if you choose to move. Food is rampant here considering you have a plethora of animals here, and overall the spectacle of it all is just amazing. This is an area that I travel to often when I play Elden Ring, and even stay a bit longer when I don't feel like progressing in the story right then and there. You do run the risk of a few mimic tiers as well as the Dragonkin soldiers, but to me this place is everything. Nocron and Limgrave were surefire top picks for this list, but playing more of Elden Ring as the DLC gets closer made me fall back in love with not only the game, but this beauty of an area. Well, that's my list for the best and worst places to live in Elden Ring. If you agree with my list, leave a like and share with a friend. If you don't agree with the list, still leave a like and comment your ranking of each area. Don't forget to also subscribe to the page and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads. Thank you all so much for watching this video up until the end, and I'll see you all on the next one.